Hello and welcome. Something new we're going to try here as an extension of Forest Park Town Hall. And that's a discussion, kind of a discussion broadcast of what goes on in Town Hall, topics that are heated on Town Hall, and general events that are happening in Forest Park, Proviso. As we always have to explain to people the surrounding areas, yes, if it's right on the border, if it involves Forest Park people, if it's happening on the border of Oak Park, et cetera, local politics, things of that nature, just like we allow in the town hall, and we try and keep it away from national and or even state topics. And with that said, my name is Chris Harris. I'm the one that founded this crazy little page that just keeps blowing up. And with me for this initial podcast is the man that really handles the heavy lifting on it, which is the day-to-day admin work, much more than I do, though we consult on things when they get big and crazy. And his name is Neil Driscoll. You probably know him. You see him on the page. He's active as well and tries to explain himself. So Neil, welcome.
Thank you. Welcome, Chris. Thanks for inviting me.
All right, this should be somewhat interesting, and I think we can answer a lot of things that we get email or messages about and complaints about, and things along that line. So let's just, the history of the page is it was started just as at the time, the best way to communicate with your neighbors was on social media with these kind of groups that were popping up. And it started, it was a kind of a slow build into the monster it became. And the one thing that was kind of founded on was the principle that we're going to allow both sides of a topic, even if, we personally, there's things that are posted that I know you and I personally don't agree with at all. But I think it's important to let both sides have a discussion. And if you say you're going to kind of stay with that free speech model, you kind of have to be very step out of the way on a lot of things. So my first question to you, first of all, I don't think people realize how much work goes into just being an admin. So just like in the stuff that you have to deal with, like people who are joining or trying to join each day, and where they're coming from, and how you have to vet them. What's your process on that, Neil?
Well, somebody asks to join, I look at their profile, I look at what other groups they're in. Um, there are a lot of forest parks around the country. There's a big city or a suburb of Atlanta Forest Park. St. Louis has a kind of a neighborhood. It's akin to Lincoln Park in Chicago. Outside of Cleveland, there's a forest park. So you get people from all over the country trying to join. If they're not from Forest Park, Illinois, if they're not local to here, they don't get in. Um, Typical day, there's going to be 8 to 10 people trying to get in. Busy day will be more like 20 to 30. Really crazy days when there's big topics going on, it can be 50, 60 people wanting to join. Uh, do get a lot of bots. I try to weed them out because we want to keep the garbage out of the site. I know everybody's into some Facebook groups that have tons and tons of spam messages. I try to make sure we don't. Um, I get posts reported to me, people complaining about what's being said, and review it and decide whether it makes or breaks the rules.
Let's keep that topic separate for a second. When you talk about the people joining, and I try and jump in and help a little bit when I see that there's people that have requested, um, and the first thing I look at is, are they trying to rep some company for cleaning out your ductwork or something like that? Which there's always a ton of that, carpet cleaning, things along those lines, and they're not even. But if it was a forest park business, sure they'd be allowed in, and half the time the area code is not a 708 or not even close to around here, a local one. What do you think the percentages of just that and people just wanting to spam businesses that aren't even like, we support the local businesses, even though we try and keep a number of how many times they post per week on advertising their local businesses. We want to make sure that we support the local businesses. But how many you think are just these general like duct cleaning and I don't know, it
Duct
seems that
cleaning,
yeah, that comes up a lot.
mobile car washes, those are probably 3 or 4 a day.
Right. Which is great just to keep that part clean. And then having to research each person. And it's much easier, and you could tell the person knows what's going on when they ask to join because they want to comment on something. And you can read their comment and you see they kind of know what's going on. Do you agree with that?
Yes, if there's a initial comment, at least I know whether they're on topic.
Right. And not just commenting to try and get into the spam.
Yeah.
How do you think you identify the bot spots? The because there's always comments. I think people overthink what the bots are. There's genuine humans that I know that I have had a conversation, at least one conversation with, or know of, that comment that people think are bots because we'll call it what they are. They're shit starters a little bit, and maybe they have their profile hidden so you can't see a lot or something like that. But they definitely exist as a human. But what about the actual bots? What do you think the percentages of that, or how do you weed that out?
I typically see 2 or 3 foreign people trying to join. Right now, Thailand is a big area.
There's a bot farm in Thailand now.
Yeah,
All right, so we've moved away
uh,
from Russia.
we've moved away from Russia. We're now in Thailand.
Okay.
Um, a little bit of the Middle East. Occasionally, there'll be ones that everything is in Arabic.
Mm-hmm.
When you go into their posts, everything they post is written in Arabic. Um, Seeing a few come through now that have locked profiles. That automatically is a no, you can't join because you cannot lock your profile on Facebook in the United States, which means those profiles were created elsewhere.
What do you mean by lock a profile?
If you click on the person's profile, it says his profile has been locked.
So not just private to the hilt, actually locked.
Actually locked. And as I say, Facebook does not allow that in the United States.
Ah,
Uh,
well, that's an easy way to see if someone's even remotely local.
yes, um, there are still some people in the member list that show up that they're in Nigeria. I'm trying to figure out how to find them.
Interesting.
Yes, uh, because Facebook allows me to see what countries are represented, but not who is from those countries.
Hmm.
So I can see the number, but I can't filter by.
That seems like a little flaw on Facebook's part.
Yes,
All right. Now, bigger than bots is people tend to complain sometimes that this person doesn't live in Forest Park, but we allow businesses, but we also allow people that have lived here. Were born and raised here, and then they've moved away, and maybe they're in Florida or Phoenix or something now, because they want to keep a touch of what's happening in town and whatnot. So we try and be somewhat liberal when it comes to the people in and around. Would you agree with that?
yes. And while they can't advertise stuff from other communities, but somebody lives in Oak Park, what happens in Forest Park is kind of important to them. I know I'm in an Oak Park group, I'm in a Berwyn group because it's nice to know what's going on in the neighborhood.
All right, I'm in a group
There's
that
a
encompasses all those. I think it's called North Riverside, Berwyn, Forest Park, Oak Park, or something like that. And
right, yeah.
that's almost too
So
that's almost too general. And like I said, we allow things that are happening around and on our border. We're going to talk about one of those in a minute, but we try and be hyper focused. And like I said, this kind of a microcast of keeping things super focused on what's happening in Forest Park, our little beautiful town. Let's talk about something that's happened recently. A big topic, a little bit of a firestorm on the page, and let's the protest, the ICE protest, and we've had them on Roosevelt Road, and we've had them at the home uh, pedestrian bridge in Oak Park, which is a perfect example of it's a topic that's national, but we allow it because the protests are local and the gathering local, and they're using the site to be local. And we also, to be fair, allow people that have a counter opinion comment as long as what, Neil? As long as what is not happening in those comments.
As long as the comments are kept civil, no name calling, no rude remarks. There have been people suspended recently because of calling other people names, using um, four-letter words that aren't allowed in a courtroom. Today, two people got suspended. One person got completely booted off the site for their comments specifically on the article about the bridge.
So there's a post about the Forest Park Review article on the bridge gatherings,
Yes,
and then there's people making comments, and this is another thing to try and stress, and we also, I would like to say, and I think you agree with me, because we have discussions when it usually comes to actually booting somebody, though you're free to make that decision without me. But if it's usually we have a little bit of a discussion, and it's in our description, we kind of stress be neighborly, no name calling, keep this civil. We're all neighbors in the big picture of this, and we can disagree with our neighbors and still be neighborly. And when it devolves into name calling or veering off topic, it's like, okay, warning, warning, warning. And then at some point, you have to do something to try and not have it turn into a complete shitstorm. Would you agree with
exactly,
that?
exactly. The one that got booted today, she's never lived in Forest Park. She's never lived in Illinois, as far as I can see, and she was just kind of off the rails.
Off the rails and name calling, or what? Why don't you just walk us through your process of what has to happen? Because is there a um, written, this happens, you're gone? No, because we want to try and be as forgiving as possible to allow people to have discussions and give them a second chance and a third chance before anything drastic has to happen. So why don't you talk us through just like your process with this particular person today?
Somebody had complained about the what she had written, and so I first thing I do is I look at her profile and and what she posts on her own page. She had no posts on her own page for like 3 years, yet she had commented, and she had never posted anything on Forest Park Town Hall, but she had commented over a dozen times in the last week on other people's posts. Um, she's from down south, and I don't have no idea how she joined Forest Park Town Hall. A number of years ago, Facebook put in auto accept, and I'm still kind of cleaning out some of the people that snuck in under that. Um, Facebook likes their AI, their automated systems that don't help, but they think they do. So I have to go in and look at their profile, I look at their comments, what they said, and if it's somebody local that's calling somebody else a name, kind of like they're still on the playground in fourth grade, generally they'll get a 4 to 7 day suspension. If it's more of a nasty name calling, it can be up to a month, and they get that with a warning. Second time, they get second warning, then third and final warning, and then if they still continue to not change their ways, they're removed.
Removed. Well, they're warned and then suspended. And before anyone's removed, they've had to have major, multiple violations of just not kind of respecting other people when they're talking. And there's a way to
Exactly.
have respectful exchanges. And
Yes,
when someone once said, "Oh, the Forest Park Town Hall page is biased, liberal," in a sense, and my response would be, all voices are absolutely welcome, but it kind of reflects the nature of the town. If you kind of go by the voting record, it's more of a majority of a kind of a liberal leaning town, obviously. So the minority opinion is going to, you know, you're gonna it's gonna seem like you're in the minority because you kind of are in the minority if it's the makeup of Forest Park. That's just the math of it all.
exactly.
Let's talk about one other quick thing that happened. It was a bit of a firestorm. Keeping with the topic of ice, and since it's kind of a major topic locally and nationally, but you live right next door to an area where Commander Bavino kind of stopped in, and someone posted some video of that, and that kind of raised some eyebrows as well. Um, Maybe just your thoughts on that, but how do you think the handling of that? See, that raises people in both directions. Everybody kind of peacocks up a little bit on that and has their opinions. How do you handle something like that when, again, it's something where you're going to have kind of high tensions, and how you're respectful to both sides, and your opinion just on the since it was so close to home and how it all went
Yeah,
down.
literally close to home. I could see it out my bedroom window.
Yeah, I know.
Um, Typically, it ends up just as many people on one side of an argument as another side get removed, or not removed, but suspended for name calling. Um, the liberals don't own the page. The right isn't excluded, or other way around. But generally, I wait for somebody to complain. Um, I get text messages and Facebook messages quite often from people saying, "Hey, this person's really stepped over the line. Take a look at it." Um, and I do read through. I don't read every post every day. Um, but glance at the posts. I don't read all the comments because when it pops up and there's 70 comments on something, I generally is like, well, I'll look at the top stuff, but that's about as far as I go. If somebody has a problem with it, they can report it. Facebook does have a little spot. If you click on the three little dots on a post, you can hit report to admin, and it sends me a notification that I have something to look at.
Now let's walk through that process real quick. You get the report, and I see these as well, and I don't want to say these are over-reported, but sometimes people's personal feelings or personal beliefs may be taken into account more than something that should be reported. And sometimes they come with a follow-up DM message about, are we allowing this? This doesn't reflect the values of our community or something along those lines. And I'm like, yes, we're allowing it, and the discussion should be open. And even if it, you know, if I don't have to personally agree with it, and I think that's an important thing. You really have to kind of step outside and make sure that it's if you're just basing it on things that you personally agree with, you're not. This becomes a personal page as opposed to a community page. So,
Exactly.
so, so talk me through. Say you get a report comes up, you get this report, and how do you go through that process of if something stays or something goes?
Well, if it's name calling, it's pretty easy. That just name calling is not allowed. It just if you're not going to say it to somebody at the space, and when you meet them in Constitution Court, you don't say it on town hall.
But that's not. I mean, that's some of what gets reported. Some of it people report a whole post um, because they don't like the content of the post, and
That's
that's go ahead.
what that gets looked at. Is it related to Forest Park or Proviso? Um, is it Are there any improper words being used? And by that, any swearing going on. If it's related to the town, whether it's something I agree with, something I disagree with, I don't care. If it's related to the town and it fits the concept of this is a discussion about Forest Park, it stays. Of the stuff that gets reported, probably 60%, maybe 70%, I've hit keep.
70% keeper. I would agree with that as well. And things that you see, I think it's people kind of inject their personal opinion on something. And
Yes.
and as long as there are people that are going to disagree, there are going to people that are going to take things a little too far, and that's that's when a line is crossed.
But still rather they report it if it's something that bothers them, so at least it can be looked at.
Correct. Correct. There's nothing wrong with that.
Because I don't have time to read every comment, every post all day long to make sure, to police it. It's kind of the group has to self-police itself.
And for the most part, it does. It's usually there's and we'll get multiple messages from people when something gets completely out of hand. And I know you're on multiple pages as well as I am as well. And I think for the most part, it's civil, and if it's going to be a heated topic, and we we also know who the people are that might jump in and say something controversial, and you just want to make sure that it stays, um, even if it's on the end of the spectrum of civil, somewhat civil, and like you said, the name calling is just tamp it down. No threats, no name calling. We're all neighbors.
Exactly.
Let me ask you this: another, topics that tend to get heated outside of the political spectrum. When say a local election happens, and it's almost a free form of advertising um, to keep people's name out there and get their message out there. When do we consider that spam that people are overusing it, or what's your thought on how much do we allow and how much should we allow when it comes to local elections? Or I have a feeling in another month or so, even the race our local races, or I shouldn't say our local races, our local representatives on the national races, um, will be um, will be hitting it fairly hard with our own mayor running, and that's a highly contested seat coming up for U.S. rep for the seventh district. How do how do we keep that in without, because if you delete one and they said, well, you deleted mine but you didn't delete that person's, but just to me it's when it hits that level of spamming, which is over.
Well,
Go ahead.
kind of to start, how about if we look at what we ask our local businesses? You know, we want to encourage our local businesses to use the forum as a place to advertise. However, we don't want it to become strictly a advertisement chain string. So it's one post per week with an occasional, if they're running some sort of an unusual special, an additional post.
Right, and it's a good part of, or a good way to do that. Take a guy like Pat, who runs Scratch. He'll post something, but then he'll also engage with people in the comments on it and have a little conversation about, hey, we're doing this, we're gonna have this special. The Bears game is this time. We got some live music, and he kind of talks to people. That's my advice if you're a local business. Don't just post your thing and let it sit there. Be a little active on it. Donnie, who owns Roberts West Side, also will post and have conversations with people. Um, Connie, when she used to own the Brown Cow, also, people used to want to kind of put it up there as an advertisement because it seems kind of stale. You're part of the community, so kind of engage with the community.
And Richard Shower from Shower Hardware,
Sure,
he doesn't post ads much, but he does engage with in the community quite a bit.
agreed, agreed
Yeah.
very much.
As far as political, I think we should discuss it, but I think we should kind of keep it close to that same quantity of posts.
So, and to tell a business that might be listening right now, what do we allow, and when do we have to have a discussion? Because sometimes they have someone from their staff post, and then they have another person from the staff, and they're like, "Well, I only posted once, and but the other person posted," and it's kind of per business. We just don't want it to be flooded, so it becomes a site of just ads. Correct?
Correct. Um, I do, if they start posting more often, I send them a, private message saying, hey, you know, we love the fact that you advertise, but to keep it from becoming just an advertisement zone and not a community, not a discussion zone, we ask you limit it. And most companies respond pretty quickly with backing off and doing that. Some of them it takes 3 and 4 times to remind them of it. Had one that was doing about every 2 hours they were posting,
Wow.
and yeah, uh, so I had them, and it was a case of that it was the owner and two of his family that were staff, each posting large ads.
Yeah, and I to a local business, it almost becomes kind of a turnoff. It's like get your point out, get your specials out, and again, engage with the community more than just kind of float it out there.
Yes,
All right. Well, the
the
goal of these is to keep these tight, Neil. So, and as we kind of wind this down, something else you want to mention about your role or the page in general before I kind of add my
no,
thoughts here.
I think we covered it. Why don't you go ahead and wrap it up? We're at
Yeah, these are
20.
microcasts. I want these to be micro in localness and micro in time. I like to keep these about 30 minutes and kind of get our point across. But so what will future episodes have? Like once a month, if something comes up that's a big topic, politics, local events, um, a topic in town. We used to host in-person town halls, and we had a meetup once that I thought was pretty productive, Neil, if you recall. So again, this is another way to kind of talk to people and kind of get their thoughts out there, and you can leave comments on this. And for now, this is an audio only podcast, and we'll post it at YouTube, where it's YouTube at Forest Park Town Hall, and it'll be on every major podcast outlet, Apple, Spotify, etc. But kind of want to get the topics out that are local, keep this thing micro local, let people have a discussion, get newsmakers on, maybe have people on that are very active on town hall that we have that kind of lead conversations, influencers of the page, if you will, and kind of keep this local and keep the discussion going in one more avenue, and hopefully make it something productive for everyone. Neil, final thoughts?
No, that sounds like a good idea.
Well, thank you everyone for joining. Hope it was somewhat informative. Neil providing the insights of the questions we get kind of nonstop on this page. I thought the perfect first guest would be the guy that actually handles the nuts and bolts of the admin work, and some of you have interacted with, and a hearty discussion. Neil, thanks for your time, and hope everyone joins us next time.
Thank you. Have a good night.